What happens when a comedian known for his sharp political satire sits down with America's sweetheart talk show host, and the conversation takes a turn nobody saw coming? Randy Rainbow just had one of the most explosive interview meltdowns in daytime television history. It began innocently enough. Kelly Clarkson welcomed Randy onto her vibrant talk show set with her signature warm smile, while Randy leaned into his theatrical charm. Kelly started with what seemed like harmless banter. "Randy, your political parodies have become such a phenomenon, but don't you ever worry about going too far?" Randy shifted in his chair, raising an eyebrow. "Too far? Kelly, reality itself has already gone too far? I'm just holding up a mirror to the absurdity." But Kelly pressed gently. "Some people might say your videos cross lines, especially when you target politicians so harshly." The smile on Randy's face faded. "Cross lines? Comedy has always been about pushing boundaries. That's literally the point. Are we really going to have this conversation right now?" Kelly leaned forward, her tone tightening. "I'm just saying maybe there's a responsibility that comes with having a platform like yours. Some of your content can be pretty divisive." Randy's voice sharpened. "Divisive? Calling out corruption isn't divisive. It's necessary. Are you really going to lecture me about responsibility while you're hosting a show that pushes celebrity gossip and consumer culture?" The audience began to murmur, sensing the tension rising. Kelly's smile turned strained. "I think you're misunderstanding me, Randy." But he cut in, voice rising. "No, I understand perfectly. You brought me here to promote my work, and now you're trying to shame me for doing exactly what made me famous. This is classic mainstream media behavior." Kelly tried to regain control, but Randy was relentless. He accused daytime TV of being a sanitized, corporate-approved wasteland where nothing real is allowed because it might upset advertisers. The audience fell silent, some visibly uncomfortable, others pulling out their phones to capture the drama. When Kelly attempted to steer the conversation back toward Randy's upcoming projects, he laughed bitterly. "Oh, now you want to move on? Convenient. You dragged me into this interrogation, and when I push back, suddenly it's time to change the subject." Kelly flushed but held her composure. "Randy, I wasn't interrogating you. I thought these questions would lead to an interesting discussion." "Interesting for who? Your producers who told you to grill me? Or your audience, who might finally want to hear something authentic instead of the usual fluff?" Randy shot back. The exchange grew even more heated as Randy accused the show of glossing over serious issues. "When was the last time you asked a guest a question they couldn't answer with a rehearsed talking point?" Kelly's voice sharpened in response. "I ask tough questions when they're appropriate." "Appropriate according to who? Your legal team, your network suits, your advertisers? Because I guarantee you none of them care about what's appropriate for the moment we're living in," Randy retorted. Kelly, visibly rattled, insisted he was being unfair. Randy, meanwhile, refused to back down, his frustration boiling over as the interview completely unraveled before a stunned studio audience. Behind the scenes, that's exactly the problem, Randy snapped. All the real conversations happen off camera, while the audience is fed manufactured positivity that has nothing to do with reality. Kelly took a visible deep breath, trying to regain control. "Look, Randy, I understand you're passionate about your work and I respect that. But attacking me personally isn't productive." Randy shook his head. "I'm not attacking you as a person. I'm attacking a system you happen to be a successful part of." "There's a difference," Kelly bristled. "But you're sitting on my show as my guest, essentially telling me that everything I do is meaningless corporate propaganda. I'm telling you that daytime television has become a vehicle for avoiding real conversations about real problems. If that describes your show, then maybe that's something worth examining." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Kelly's producer could be seen frantically gesturing from behind the cameras. Kelly tried again, her voice sharper now. "Randy, I invited you here because I thought you were funny and talented, not because I wanted to be lectured about the state of media." Randy leaned forward. "And I came here because I thought maybe, just maybe, someone in mainstream media actually wanted to have a real conversation about why comedy matters in dark times." Apparently I was wrong. Kelly's defensiveness deepened. You're making a lot of assumptions about my intentions and my show that just aren't accurate. Then prove me wrong, Randy challenged. Ask me something real. Ask me why I think humor is one of the last defenses we have against fascism, instead of asking me to justify my existence as an artist. Kelly frowned. Fascism? Don't you think that's a pretty extreme word to throw around? Randy's eyes widened. And there it is. You think the word fascism is extreme, but you don't think the actual policies and behaviors that define fascism are extreme. That's exactly the willful blindness I'm talking about, Kelly countered quickly. I'm not blind to anything. I just think we should be careful about using inflammatory language. Inflammatory? Randy scoffed. What's inflammatory is pretending that calling a spade is worse than the spade itself. What's inflammatory is tone policing people who are sounding the alarm while the house burns down around us. The audience was dead silent, hanging on every word of this unexpected philosophical battle. Kelly tried again. Randy, I think you're being unfair to me and to my audience. We care about these issues too. Randy didn't miss a beat. Do you? Because caring and actually addressing them are two different things. Caring is easy, it's just a feeling. Action requires risk, and risk is bad for ratings. Kelly's composure was cracking. So now you're saying everyone in mainstream media is a coward? That's not fair or accurate. I'm saying mainstream media operates within constraints that make real courage almost impossible. Yes, that includes this show. Yes, that includes this conversation we're having right now. Kelly's face hardened. So what you're saying is this conversation is somehow fake or meaningless because it's happening on my show. I'm saying we're having this conversation inside a framework designed to prevent it from going anywhere real. We're performing authenticity instead of actually being authentic. Kelly bristled. Performing authenticity? Randy, I'm being completely genuine with you right now. Are you? Randy asked pointedly. Because genuine Kelly would probably have real opinions about the state of the world. But talk show host Kelly has to stay neutral, palatable, and brand safe. Which Kelly am I talking to right now? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Kelly's jaw tightened. You know what, Randy? You're right. Let me be genuine. I think you're being incredibly arrogant. You walk onto my show and attack everything about it without knowing anything about me or what I actually believe. Randy smiled grimly. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Tell me what you actually believe, Kelly. Not what your network wants, not what your audience expects. What do you really think about the world we're living in? Kelly hesitated, wrestling with how much to reveal. Finally, she said softly, I think the world is complicated, Randy. Reducing everything to good guys and bad guys makes for good comedy, but it's not helpful for solving problems. Randy shook his head. Complicated? Some things aren't complicated. When someone tries to overthrow an election, that's not complicated. When someone puts kids in cages, that's not complicated. When someone lies every time they open their mouth, that's not complicated. Kelly pushed back. But Randy, don't you think that kind of black and white thinking is exactly what's dividing this country? Randy stared at her in disbelief. Are you serious? You think the problem is people like me being too judgmental about objectively terrible behavior? You think the solution is being more understanding of cruelty and corruption? I think the solution is finding ways to bring people together instead of driving them apart, Kelly shot back. Bring people together? Kelly, you can't bring people together with fascists. You can't find middle ground with people who want to eliminate your neighbor's right to exist. This isn't about tax policy. It's about basic human dignity. Kelly's voice rose. And that's exactly the rhetoric that makes it impossible to have productive conversations with anyone who doesn't already agree with you. Productive conversations? Randy challenged. What would a productive conversation with someone who thinks certain groups of people shouldn't have rights look like? Please enlighten me. Kelly tried to hold her ground. It would look like trying to understand where they're coming from instead of writing them off as evil. Randy stared in disbelief. Kelly, I understand perfectly where they're coming from. Fear, hatred, ignorance. Understanding doesn't mean I have to respect it or accommodate it. Kelly pressed. But don't you think that attitude just perpetuates the cycle of division? No, What perpetuates division is pretending hatred and love are equally valid perspectives. What perpetuates division is false equivalency, both sides-ism and the moral relativism you're advocating right now. The studio was silent, the audience frozen in discomfort. Kelly finally snapped, "I'm not advocating moral relativism. I'm advocating basic human decency and common ground." Randy's response was cold. Human decency means standing up to bullies, not understanding them. Human decency means protecting the vulnerable, not compromising with oppressors. Kelly's mask was gone. "You're putting words in my mouth and creating positions I never took." "Am I?" Randy shot back. "Because it sounds like you're more worried about being polite to fascists than protecting the people they're hurting." "That's not what I said, and you know it." "Then what are you saying?" "Because it sounds like you want me to tone down my criticism of dangerous people so their feelings aren't hurt, or so your show doesn't look too political." Kelly tried one last angle. "I'm saying maybe your approach isn't as effective as you think it is." Randy's eyes flashed with anger. "Effective? My work has reached millions, helping people process the trauma of living through the worst political era in modern American history. What has your approach done besides keep people comfortable while everything falls apart?" Kelly snapped back. "My approach has brought joy and positivity to people during difficult times." Randy leaned in, his voice sharp as a knife. "Joy and positivity, Kelly. There's a difference between bringing joy and enabling denial. There's a difference between positivity and avoidance." Kelly stood up abruptly, her voice rising. "Randy, I think you need to check yourself here. You're being incredibly disrespectful to me, to my show, and to my audience." Randy also rose, matching her energy. The studio lights seemed to intensify the heat of the moment as host and guest faced off across the coffee table. Kelly's voice trembled with barely contained frustration. "Centrist nonsense? Randy, you don't even know what I believe personally. You're making sweeping judgments about me based on absolutely nothing." "I'm making judgments based on exactly what you've shown me in the last 10 minutes, Randy fired back. "You've spent this entire conversation trying to get me to apologize for having strong convictions about right and wrong." "I haven't asked you to apologize for anything," Kelly snapped. "I've asked you to consider that maybe your way isn't the only way to create positive change." Randy threw his hands up in exasperation. "Positive change? Positive change requires acknowledging when things are wrong, not finding ways to make everyone feel better about terrible situations," Kelly countered sharply. "And you think insulting and mocking people is going to make them suddenly see the light?" "I think holding people accountable for their actions is more important than protecting their feelings. I think truth matters more than comfort." Kelly's voice got sharper. "Truth, Randy, your truth. Your perspective. Your interpretation of events. But you present it like it's the only possible way to see things." Randy shot back instantly. "When it comes to basic human rights and democratic principles, yes, there is only one acceptable way to see things. This isn't a matter of opinion, Kelly. Everything is a matter of opinion, Randy. That's what living in a democracy means." He stared at her incredulously. "No, Kelly, everything is not a matter of opinion. The earth is round. Gravity exists, and trying to overturn elections is wrong. These aren't opinions, they're facts. But how you respond to those facts, how you talk about them, how you treat people who disagree with you, those are choices. And I choose to respond with the urgency the situation demands instead of pretending everything is fine." Kelly shook her head vigorously. "Randy, nobody's pretending everything is fine. But screaming at people isn't solving anything." "I'm not screaming at people, Kelly. I'm using humor and satire to point out absurdity and corruption. If that feels like screaming to you, maybe you should ask yourself why." "Because it's aggressive and divisive," Kelly shot back. "And it pushes people away instead of bringing them in." Randy's voice rose. "Good. Some people should be pushed away. Some people shouldn't be brought in. Not every perspective deserves a seat at the table." Kelly's face tightened. "See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That kind of absolutist thinking is dangerous." "Dangerous?" Randy thundered. You know what's dangerous? Giving platforms to people who spread misinformation and hate, while tone policing the people who call them out on it. Kelly jabbed a finger at him. And you know what's also dangerous? Creating content that makes people angrier and more divided instead of helping them find solutions. Randy leaned forward. Solutions, Kelly? The solution is for good people to stop being polite to bad people. The solution is for people with platforms like yours to stop pretending neutrality is a virtue when one side wants to destroy democracy. Kelly's voice cracked. Randy, you're completely twisting everything I'm saying. No, I'm hearing you loud and clear, Randy retorted. You're saying my comedy is problematic because it takes sides. You're saying standing up to authoritarianism is divisive. You're saying calling out corruption is inflammatory. Kelly flushed with anger. I never said any of those things. You absolutely did, Randy snapped. You've spent this entire interview concern trolling me about my tone while completely ignoring the substance of what I'm trying to accomplish. Concern trolling? Randy, I was trying to have a thoughtful discussion about the role of political comedy in our culture. No, you were trying to get me to admit I'm part of the problem so you could feel better about your own complicity in the system. Kelly's voice cracked again, softer but still sharp. My complicity, Randy? You don't know anything about my life or my values or what I do when the cameras aren't rolling. I know what you do when the cameras are rolling, Randy shot back. And that's what matters. You use your platform to promote safe, sanitized content that never challenges anyone to think differently about anything important. Kelly shook her head. That's not true, and it's incredibly unfair. Randy began gathering his things. You know what's unfair, Kelly? Living in a country where comedians have to be the ones telling the truth because journalists won't do it, and talk show hosts won't do it. Kelly's voice rose in alarm. Randy, where are you going? I'm leaving. This conversation has made it crystal clear that we live in completely different realities, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend your reality is equally valid. Her voice became desperate. Randy, please don't leave. We can find a way to have this conversation constructively. He stopped, turning back to face her. Constructively? Kelly, construction requires a foundation. We don't even agree on basic facts about the world we're living in. How exactly are we supposed to build anything on that? By listening to each other and trying to understand different perspectives. I've been listening, Kelly. I've heard you loud and clear. You think I'm too angry, too divisive, too unwilling to compromise with people who want to harm others. Message received. Randy, that's not what I think. Then what do you think, Kelly? What do you actually genuinely think about the state of the world right now? Not what you think your audience wants to hear. Not what you think is appropriate. What do you actually think? Kelly hesitated, the question hanging between them like a final challenge. The silence stretched uncomfortably as cameras captured her internal struggle. Finally, she spoke, her voice lacking conviction. I think we need to find ways to heal the divisions in our country. Randy shook his head sadly. That's not an answer, Kelly. That's a talking point. And the fact that you can't give me a real answer proves everything I've been saying. With that, Randy turned toward the exit, leaving Kelly standing alone on her own set as the audience watched in stunned silence. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of the most dramatic walk-off in daytime television history. So there you have it, the explosive confrontation nobody saw coming. What do you think went wrong here? Was Randy right to call out Kelly's approach, or did he go too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and make sure to subscribe for more breakdowns of the biggest daytime TV meltdowns.